The distant star of Tethys 9 cast long shadows across the barren terrain, its dying light barely penetrating the toxic atmosphere. Captain Terran Rylan Cade adjusted his rebreather mask and surveyed the desolate landscape through narrowed eyes. 15 years of special operations on the frontier had taught him to recognize danger in the subtlest of signs, and everything about this forsaken planet screamed ambush. "Movement detected. Southeast quadrant," came the clipped voice of Captain Juno Ree through his comms. "3 signatures. Moving fast." Rylan tightened his grip on his pulse rifle. "Maintain position. Could be indigenous fauna." "Negative, Captain," Juno replied, her tone cool and precise. "Heat signatures match bipedal combatants. Weapons detected." The Araxis Empire was crumbling. After 3 centuries of dominating the known galaxy, internal strife had finally caught up with the regime. The Far Reach Coalition, a collection of rebellious factions determined to overthrow the imperial hierarchy, had gained significant ground in the past decade. What had begun as scattered insurgencies had coalesced into organized rebellion, and now civil war raged across 1,000 worlds. Rylan's mission was simple, at least on paper: extract a high-value asset from Tethys 9 before coalition forces could capture them. The briefing had been frustratingly vague, typical of command these days, but the urgency had been clear. Whatever, or whoever, waited in the ruins of this abandoned mining colony was important enough to send an elite frontier ops team into hostile territory. "Hold positions," Rylan ordered. "Dr. Solon, stay behind me." Dr. Mira Solon, the team's xenobiologist, nodded grimly. Her presence on this mission had raised Rylan's suspicions from the start. The Empire didn't typically send scientists on extraction ops unless the asset was biological in nature. The wind howled through the skeletal remains of the colony's processing plant, carrying with it the acrid scent of sulfur and decay. Rylan signaled for his team to advance, moving silently from one shadowed position to the next. Years of fighting had made them a seamless unit, communicating more through subtle gestures than words. They were approaching the colony's central hub when Rylan spotted the first sign of their quarry, a flash of iridescent light, quickly extinguished from within a collapsed structure, too deliberate to be natural, too desperate to be a trap. "Contact," he whispered into his comm. "Possible target acquired." "Captain," Dr. Solon's voice was tense. "If this is who I think it is, approach with extreme caution. Zirthe physiology reacts defensively to perceived threats." "Zirthe!" The word sent a chill down Rylan's spine. The Zirthe were a reclusive species of metamorphs with abilities that bordered on the supernatural. Once valued allies of the Empire, they had withdrawn from galactic affairs decades ago. Rumors suggested their powers had grown too unpredictable, too dangerous to control. Rylan signaled for Juno to circle around to the rear of the structure while he approached from the front. The light flashed again, a faint, bluish glow that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat rhythm. As he drew closer, the air grew unnaturally still. The background radiation that permeated Tethys 9 seemed to bend around the collapsed structure, creating a pocket of calm in the chaotic environment. Rylan's tactical visor registered the anomaly with flashing warnings. "I'm detecting significant energy fluctuations," Dr. Solon reported, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. "Consistent with Zirthe bioluminescence, but far more intense than documented records." Rylan was 3 meters from the entrance when movement caught his eye, a shadow detaching itself from the darkness behind the structure. The figure moved with unnatural speed, its form shifting and blurring as it raced toward the collapsed building. "Ambush!" Juno shouted through the comms. "Coalition assassin!" Everything happened in an instant. The assassin materialized at the entrance, a metallic blade gleaming in its hand. Not an ordinary weapon, but a Mediana blade, a legendary death-delivering blade, capable of severing the life force of its victims. Such weapons were thought to be mere myths, relics of a bygone era when psychic abilities were more prevalent in the galaxy. The bluish glow within the structure intensified, and for a split second, Ryland caught a glimpse of the figure huddled inside, slender, feminine, with skin that shimmered like polished opal, and eyes that glowed with an inner light. A crown of crystalline protrusions adorned her head, marking her as Zirthe royalty. The assassin lunged, the death blade arcing toward the defenseless figure. In that moment, training and instinct took over. Ryland hurled himself forward, interposing his body between the blade and its intended target. He felt the weapon slice through his armor, as if it were cloth, a searing cold penetrating deep into his chest. Time seemed to slow. Ryland was vaguely aware of Juno opening fire, of Dr. Solon shouting something about stasis fields. But all he could focus on was the face of the being he had just saved, beautiful and alien, expressing shock, fear, and something else, a dawning recognition. As darkness closed in around him, Ryland heard a voice in his mind, melodic and otherworldly. "Your life for mine," it whispered. "The debt is formed. The bond is sealed." Then, mercifully, oblivion claimed him. Consciousness returned to Ryland in disjointed fragments. Pain, voices arguing, the sensation of movement. When he finally managed to open his eyes, he found himself in the medical bay of their transport vessel, the Starfire. "He's awake," Dr. Solon announced, her face appearing in his field of vision. "Captain, can you hear me?" Ryland tried to speak, but his throat felt raw and unused. How long had he been unconscious? 3 days, Dr. Solon answered, as if reading his thoughts. "The blade should have killed you instantly. By all medical understanding, you shouldn't be alive." "The princess," he managed to rasp. "Where is she?" Dr. Solon exchanged a glance with someone outside Ryland's field of vision. "She's here, and she's been insistent about seeing you." With effort, Ryland turned his head to see the Zirthe female standing at the entrance to the medical bay, flanked by 2 wary guards. Up close, and in the ship's lighting, her alienness was even more pronounced. Her skin shifted colors subtly with her breathing, and the crystalline crown he had glimpsed earlier was revealed to be part of her actual anatomy. Bioluminescent growths that framed her face like a diadem. "Leave us," she commanded, her voice carrying an unnatural resonance that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. "Princess Alara," Dr. Solon began, "the captain needs rest." "Leave us," the Zirthe repeated, and this time the command carried such force that both guards stepped aside involuntarily. Dr. Solon hesitated, then nodded reluctantly and exited the medical bay. Princess Alara Vesh approached Ryland's bedside with fluid grace. Up close, her eyes were mesmerizing, pools of liquid silver that seemed to contain galaxies within them. "You shielded me from the Mediana blade," she stated. "Do you understand what you have done, Terran?" Ryland tried to push himself up to a more dignified position, but found his strength lacking. "My job," he answered simply. "Protecting the asset." A sound like wind chimes emanated from the princess. A laugh, he realized belatedly. "I am no asset, Captain Cade. I am the last royal bloodline of the Zirthe, carrier of the spring flame, and now—" her expression sobered. "Now I am bound to you by a life debt." "I don't understand," Ryland admitted. "The Mediana blade severs not just flesh, but the very essence of life," she explained. "When you intercepted it, you sacrificed your life force for mine. In doing so, you created a bond that cannot be broken until the debt is repaid." She placed a slender hand over his chest, where the blade had struck. "Your life now flows partially through me, and mine through you. It is why you survived." Ryland felt a tingling warmth spread from her touch. "And this debt, how is it repaid?" "It can only be repaid in kind. A life for a life." Her silver eyes held his. "Until such time, we are bound. Where you go, I must follow. What you feel, I will sense. Should you die, a part of me dies with you." Before Rylan could process this revelation, the medical bay door slid open, and Captain Juno Rhee entered, her expression thunderous. "Captain, we have a situation," she reported, deliberately ignoring the princess. "Command has issued new orders. We're to deliver the Jirthe to Central Research Station immediately." Alara's skin darkened, shifting to a deep indigo. "I will not be a laboratory specimen for your empire." "You don't have a choice," Juno replied coldly. "The Far Reach Coalition has put a bounty on your head that would buy a small planet. The only safe place for you is under Empire protection." "Protection," Alara's voice rose, the crystalline growths on her head pulsing with light. "Your empire hunted my kind to near extinction when our powers became inconvenient to control. The only reason I'm still alive is because I've remained hidden." Rylan felt a surge of emotion that wasn't his own: fear, anger, and a deep, abiding mistrust. Somehow, he knew these feelings belonged to Alara, bleeding through their newfound connection. "Enough," he interjected, summoning what authority he could from his prone position. "Juno, inform command that we've secured the asset but require additional time for recovery before transport. Dr. Solon will continue to monitor the princess's condition." Juno's eyes narrowed. "Sir, with all due respect, our orders can wait until I'm back on my feet," Rylan finished firmly. "I took a Mediana blade to the chest. I think command can grant us a few days' grace." After a tense moment, Juno nodded curtly and left the medical bay. Alara watched her go, the colors in her skin gradually returning to their opalescent baseline. "She fears me," the princess observed. "She fears what you represent," Rylan corrected. "The unknown, the uncontrollable. And you, Captain, do you fear me as well?" Rylan considered the question. "I respect what you're capable of, but fear, no, not anymore." Alara tilted her head, studying him with those silver eyes. "Because of our bond. Because you could have let me die after I served my purpose. But here I am, alive, with you standing guard over me." He managed a weak smile. "That tells me something about your character." "Perhaps it merely tells you I cannot afford to lose my shield just yet," she replied. But there was a lightness to her tone that hadn't been there before. "Get some rest, Princess. We have difficult days ahead." As Alara departed, Rylan closed his eyes, trying to make sense of the situation. He had expected a routine extraction, not a mystical bond with an alien princess, and certainly not the responsibility of deciding her fate, for he knew, deep down, that he could never hand her over to become a research subject. Not after what she had shared with him. Not after feeling her emotions as if they were his own. Whatever this life debt was, it had complicated his mission immeasurably. But as sleep claimed him once more, Rylan couldn't help but feel that perhaps, for the first time in years, he was on the right side of history. The next few days passed in a blur of recovery and clandestine planning. Rylan's wound healed at an accelerated rate, another benefit of the life bond. According to Alara, Dr. Solon was fascinated by the process, taking every opportunity to study the interaction between human and Zirthe physiology. "The cellular regeneration is unprecedented," she explained excitedly, reviewing scan data as Rylan exercised his recovering muscles. "Your body is being restored according to Zirthe biological principles, rather than human ones. It's as if her DNA is providing a template for your repairs." "Is that dangerous?" Rylan asked, rotating his shoulder experimentally. "Theoretically, it should be impossible," Dr. Solon admitted. "Cross-species genetic compatibility is rare enough, but this level of integration, it's more like symbiosis than anything in our medical literature." Juno had maintained a professional distance, executing her duties with precision but saying little. Rylan knew she disapproved of the delay in following command's orders, but she respected the chain of command enough not to openly challenge him. At least, not yet. On the fourth day, as the Starfire maintained orbit around Tethys 9's largest moon, Alara sought Rylan out in his quarters. "Your subordinate has been communicating with your command," she informed him without preamble. "They grow impatient. Soon, they will send another ship to escort us." Rylan sighed. "You've been eavesdropping on secure communications." "I've been ensuring my survival," she countered. "Tell me, Captain, what will you do when they arrive? Will you fulfill your duty to your empire and deliver me to their laboratories?" The question hung in the air between them. In truth, Rylan had been wrestling with this dilemma since regaining consciousness. His entire career had been built on loyalty to the Empire, on following orders without question. But the life debt had changed things, forced him to see Alara as more than just an asset or a mission parameter. "What would happen," he asked slowly, "if we went somewhere else, away from both the Empire and the Coalition?" Alara's skin rippled with surprise, flashes of gold spreading across her opalescent surface. "You would desert? Become a fugitive?" "I'm considering all options," Rylan said carefully. "The galaxy's a big place. There are neutral territories where neither the Empire nor the Coalition hold sway." "Captain Cade," she said, using his formal title for the first time since their initial meeting. "Do you understand what I am? Why both factions want me so desperately?" Rylan shook his head. "The briefing was light on details. Some kind of biological weapon. I assumed." "The spring flame is not a weapon," Alara said, her voice taking on a reverent quality. "It is a gift, passed down through the royal bloodline of Jirthe for millennia. It gives its bearer the power to alter reality at its most fundamental level, to rewrite the very code of existence." Rylan stared at her, processing the implications. "You're saying you can... what? Reshape matter? Change the laws of physics?" "Within limits, yes. The Coalition believes they can extract this power, use it to create weapons that would end the war in their favor. Your empire fears this outcome, so they wish to either control me or ensure no one else can." Her silver eyes held his. "I am the last of my line, Captain, the last keeper of the spring flame. If I fall into either faction's hands, the balance of power in this galaxy will be irrevocably altered." The weight of this revelation settled heavily on Rylan's shoulders. No wonder Command had been so insistent on recovering her. No wonder the Coalition had sent their best assassin with a legendary blade. "We need to get you somewhere safe," he decided. "Somewhere neither faction can reach." "Such places grow scarce in this war," Alara observed. "And we cannot simply disappear. The life bond between us creates a unique energy signature that those with the right technology can track." Before Rylan could respond, the ship's alert system blared to life. "Proximity warning," announced the automated voice. "Unidentified vessel approaching. Weapons active." Rylan moved to the communication panel. "Bridge, report." "Coalition warship," Juno's voice replied tersely. "Destroyer class. They've launched fighters. ETA 3 minutes. "How did they find us?" Rylan demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our stealth systems are fully operational." But Rylan knew the answer, even before looking at Alara's grim expression. The Coalition had tracked the unique energy signature of their life bond, just as she had warned. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump. Dr. Sullen, secure all research data and report to the bridge." "Sir," Juno hesitated. "There's something else. We're receiving a transmission from the Coalition vessel. It's addressed specifically to you." Rylan exchanged a glance with Alara. "Put it through to my quarters." The communication panel flickered, and the image of a stern-faced man in a Coalition general's uniform appeared. His features were sharp, almost predatory, with eyes the color of burnished steel. Captain Cade, the man greeted, his voice cultured and dangerous. I am General Kiev Morix, commander of the Far Reach Coalition's Special Operations Division. I believe you have something that belongs to us. I wasn't aware the Jirthe belonged to anyone, General, Rylan replied evenly. Morix's thin lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The princess is a means to an end, Captain. Nothing more. But you've become something far more interesting since your encounter with her. Rylan felt a chill at the general's words. What do you want? To offer you a choice. Surrender yourself and the Jirthe to me, and I'll ensure your crew is allowed safe passage back to Empire territory. Resist, and I'll be forced to destroy your vessel and harvest what remains of your bonded essence from the wreckage. Morix leaned closer to the screen. Yes, Captain. We know about the life debt. We've been studying the Jirthe for decades, far longer than your Empire suspects. And if I surrender, what happens to us? Science happens. Captain. Progress. The salvation of countless lives through the powers you and the princess now share. Morix's eyes glittered. You have 2 minutes to decide. The transmission cut off, leaving Rylan and Alara in silence. He's lying, Alara said quietly. The Coalition has been experimenting on captured Jirthe for years. Their scientists believe they can extract and weaponize the spring flame through a process that invariably kills the donor. Rylan moved to his weapons locker, retrieving his sidearm and tactical gear. Then we fight our way out. Against a destroyer and its fighter complement? Alara shook her head. Even with your ship's capabilities, the odds are... Never tell me the odds. Princess. Rylan interrupted, checking his weapon. I've spent my career beating them. He activated his comm. Juno, plot a jump to the Titan Arc system. We're going to make a run for the lead city beneath the seas. Sir, that's a restricted zone, Juno protested. The underwater cities are neutral territory, protected by treaties even the Coalition respects. Exactly. They won't follow us there. Not openly. Rylan strapped on his combat harness. And, Princess, I hope you're ready to show me what this spring flame can do, because we're going to need every advantage. Alara's skin shimmered with determination, the crystalline structures around her head pulsing with inner light. I have spent my life hiding my true nature, Captain. Perhaps it is time the galaxy remembered why the Jirthe were once both revered and feared. The Coalition fighters were closing fast as the Starfire broke orbit and accelerated toward deep space. Rylan stood on the bridge, watching tactical displays as Juno maneuvered the ship through increasingly complex evasive patterns. Jump engines charging, reported the navigation officer. 87% and rising. We need 95 for a safe jump to Titan Arc, Juno said grimly. Time to intercept? Fighters will be in weapons range in 40 seconds, the destroyer in 2 minutes. Rylan turned to Alara, who stood silently observing the controlled chaos of the bridge. Any suggestions would be welcome, Princess. She studied the tactical display, then placed her hand on the console. The ship's systems flickered momentarily, as if responding to her touch. Your vessel's energy shields operate on plasma containment principles, she observed. I can enhance their effectiveness, but it will require direct interaction with the shield generators. Dr. Solon, escort the princess to engineering, Rylan ordered. Juno, buy us time. As Alara and Dr. Solon left the bridge, Juno maneuvered the Starfire into the shadow of Tethys 9's moon, using the natural formation as cover. Coalition fighters adjusting course, the tactical officer announced. They've anticipated our move. Of course they have, Rylan muttered. Arm point defense systems. Prepare to engage. The first salvo from the Coalition fighters streaked across space, brilliant energy beams cutting through the darkness. The Starfire shuddered as several impacts were absorbed by its shields. Shields at 78%, reported the engineer. Wait, energy level stabilizing? No, they're regenerating. Shields back to 84% and rising. Rylan felt a surge of power and concentration that wasn't his own. Alara, working her abilities on the ship's systems. Through their bond, he sensed her focus, the careful channeling of energy that both exhilarated and exhausted her. "Jump engines at 92%, the navigation officer called out. 30 seconds to minimum safe threshold. The destroyer is launching a second wave of fighters, Juno warned, and they've positioned themselves to block our projected jump vector. Rylan considered their options rapidly. Adjust course. We'll slingshot around the moon's gravity well. Build up speed for a manual jump calculation. Juno's eyes widened. Sir, a manual calculation at those velocities? Is our best shot, Rylan finished firmly. Do it. The Starfire banked sharply, diving toward the moon's surface before using its gravitational pull to accelerate. The Coalition fighters gave chase, their weapons fire becoming more intense as they closed the gap. Jump engines at 95%, announced the navigator. Ready for coordinates? Rylan was about to respond when a new alarm blared across the bridge. Missile lock, shouted the tactical officer. Multiple warheads incoming. Through the life bond, Rylan felt a sudden surge of determination from Alara. A moment later, the engineering comm channel activated. Captain. Dr. Sullen's voice was filled with awe. The princess is... You need to see this. The main view screen switched to the engineering bay, where Alara stood with her arms outstretched, her entire body glowing with brilliant blue-white energy. The crystalline structures on her head had expanded, forming a corona of light around her face. The ship's shield generators, visible behind her, pulsed in perfect synchrony with her movements. Rylan! Alara's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating through the ship's structure. The coordinates. Now. Without questioning, Rylan called out the jump coordinates for Titan Arc. The moment he finished, Alara's glow intensified to blinding levels. The shield generators emitted a high-pitched whine as energy cascaded through them. Missiles impacting in 3, 2. The view screen showed the Coalition warheads streaking toward them, closing the final distance, and then freezing in space, suspended in a field of shimmering energy that extended from the Starfire's shields. Jump engines at 100%, the navigator reported, voice trembling with disbelief. No, wait, 120%? How is that possible? Now! Alara commanded, her voice echoing with power. The jump engines engaged, tearing a hole in the fabric of space. The Starfire lurched forward, accelerating into the dimensional rift as the suspended missiles exploded harmlessly behind them. For a breathless moment, the ship was caught between normal space and the swirling chaos of the jump corridor. Then they were through, the stars stretching into streaks of light as they hurtled toward the Titan Arc system. On the engineering deck, Alara collapsed, the glow fading from her body as she fell unconscious. Dr. Solon rushed to her side, scanning for vital signs. She's alive, she reported over the comm. But her bio readings are erratic. Whatever she did took a tremendous toll. Rylan felt the echo of that toll through their bond, a bone-deep exhaustion that threatened to drag him down as well. Get her to medical, he ordered. I want constant monitoring until she regains consciousness. As the Starfire stabilized in the jump corridor, Rylan turned to Juno. That was unexpected. Unexpected. Juno's voice was tight with controlled anger. She interfaced directly with our ship's systems. Captain, overrode safeguards that exist for very good reasons. We have no idea what effect her abilities might have on our long-term operational capacity. She saved our lives, Rylan pointed out. This time, Juno countered. But what happens when her interests no longer align with ours? You've seen what she's capable of. The Empire was right to want her contained. Rylan felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised him with its intensity. She's not a weapon to be contained, Juno. She's a person, the last of her royal line, with abilities we barely understand. That's exactly my point, Juno insisted. We don't understand what she is or what she can do. And now you're bonded to her through some mystical alien connection that's already affecting your judgment. The accusation stung because there was truth to it. Rylan couldn't deny that the life bond was influencing him, making him more sympathetic to Alara's plight than his military training would normally allow. "My judgment is intact," he said firmly. "And right now, it's telling me that keeping the princess out of both Empire and Coalition hands is the best course of action. For everyone." Juno held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "I hope you're right, sir. For all our sakes." She turned back to her station. ETA to Titan Arc, 18 hours. Rylan left the bridge, his thoughts in turmoil. The life bond had complicated everything, blurring the clear lines of duty and loyalty that had guided his career. Yet, as he made his way to the medical bay to check on Alara, he couldn't bring himself to regret saving her life on Tethys 9. Whatever this bond had created between them, whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Their fates were now intertwined, for better or worse. The medical bay was quiet when Rylan arrived, the low hum of monitoring equipment the only sound. Alara lay on the examination table, her skin pale and translucent, the crystalline structures on her head dimmed to a faint glow. Dr. Solon stood nearby, reviewing data on a tablet. "How is she?" Rylan asked quietly. "Stable, but severely depleted." Dr. Solon replied, "What she did shouldn't be possible, Captain. She essentially became a living conduit for the ship's energy systems, redirecting and amplifying power in ways that defy our understanding of physics." Rylan moved closer to Alara's bedside. Even unconscious, she exuded an otherworldly grace that set her apart from any being he had encountered in his years on the frontier. "This spring flame she mentioned," he said. "What do you know about it?" Dr. Solon hesitated. "Only what's in the classified xenobiology archives. The Zirthe royal line is said to carry a genetic mutation that allows them to perceive and manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Empire scientists have theorized it might be related to quantum entanglement on a biological level, but all attempts to study or replicate it have failed." "And now the Coalition wants to weaponize it," Rylan murmured. "Both sides do, Captain," Dr. Solon corrected gently. "That's why your mission parameters were so vague. Command didn't want you to know the full implications of who you were retrieving." Rylan felt a surge of anger at the deception. How many other missions had he carried out without understanding the true stakes? How many times had he been a pawn in games played by powers beyond his knowledge? "I made a choice on Tethys 9, he said, more to himself than to Dr. Solon. "When I stepped in front of that blade, everything that's happened since has flowed from that moment. The question is," Dr. Solon observed, "what choice will you make now? We're heading to neutral territory, but that won't stop either faction from pursuing you. The life bond makes you both valuable and vulnerable." Before Rylan could respond, Alara's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she seemed disoriented, the silver of her irises clouded and unfocused. Then her gaze found Rylan, and clarity returned. "You felt it," she whispered. "The spring flame, through our bond." Rylan nodded. "I felt something. Power, focus, a connection to forces I can't name." "That is merely an echo," Alara said, her voice gaining strength. "A reflection of what truly flows through the bloodline of Zirthe." She attempted to sit up, and Rylan moved instinctively to assist her. "You should rest," Dr. Solon advised. "Your energy levels are dangerously low." Alara ignored the warning, her attention fixed on Rylan. "We cannot hide forever, Captain. Sooner or later, we must face General Morix and your Empire. The question is, on whose terms will that confrontation occur?" "We have 18 hours until we reach Titan Arc," Rylan told her. That gives us time to plan our next move. There is something you should know, Alara said, her expression grave. General Morix has been hunting my kind for decades, but not merely to weaponize our abilities. He has corrupted members of my species, twisted them into living weapons loyal only to him. Rylan frowned. How is that possible? I thought the Zirthe were resistant to mind control. Not mind control, Alara corrected. Soul corruption. The Mediana blade you intercepted? It was forged using the essence of fallen Zirthe, their life force perverted and bound to the metal. Morix has created an entire tribe of assassins this way, using my people's own power against them. The revelation sent a chill through Rylan. And you believe these assassins will be waiting for us at Titan Arc? I know they will, Alara said with grim certainty. The life bond between us creates ripples in the fabric of reality that they can sense. Just as Morix tracked us to Tethys 9's moon. Dr. Solin's eyes widened. Then we're heading straight into a trap. Not a trap, Alara corrected. A confrontation I have been avoiding for too long. Her silver eyes held Rylan's. I cannot run forever, Captain. The last of my line, carrying the burden of the spring flame. There must be an end to this chase, one way or another. Rylan understood then that their journey to Titan Arc was not merely an escape. It was a calculated risk, a chance to face their pursuers on terrain of their choosing rather than being hunted across the galaxy indefinitely. Tell me everything about these corrupted Zirthe, he said. Their capabilities, their weaknesses. If we're going to make a stand, I need to know exactly what we're facing. As Alara began to explain, Rylan felt the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders. He had started this mission as a soldier following orders. Now, he found himself a protector, bound by forces beyond military hierarchy or factional loyalty. Whatever awaited them at Titan Arc, he knew with certainty that his life had changed irrevocably the moment he had stepped in front of that blade. The Titan Arc system lived up to its name, a massive gas giant ringed by crystalline debris that caught the light of the distant sun and refracted it in spectacular arcs across space. Beneath the churning atmosphere of the gas giant lay Titan Arc's greatest wonder, vast oceans of liquid lead, and within them, the fabled underwater cities constructed of materials that could withstand the incredible pressure and heat. The Starfire emerged from its jump on the outer edge of the system, immediately activating its stealth systems to minimize detection. No immediate signs of pursuit, Juno reported from the tactical station. But the Coalition destroyer can't be far behind. Rylan nodded grimly. After 18 hours of preparation, the ship was as ready as it could be for whatever awaited them. Alara had recovered her strength, though she remained subdued, conserving her energy for the trials ahead. Take us in, Rylan ordered. Standard approach to Lead City. We'll request sanctuary under the Neutral Territories Accord. The Starfire began its descent toward the gas giant, navigating through the crystalline ring with precision. As they penetrated the upper atmosphere, the ship's external sensors registered increasing pressure and temperature. Hull integrity at optimal levels, reported the engineering officer. Specialized shielding engaged for deep-sea approach. Titan Arc's lead oceans came into view below them, vast, shimmering expanses of metallic liquid that reflected the atmospheric lightning in hypnotic patterns. And there, nestled within a particularly stable region, was their destination, Lead City, a massive structure of reinforced transparasteel and exotic alloys, its domes and spires creating a pocket of habitable space beneath the crushing sea. We're being hailed, Juno announced. Lead City Control requesting identification and purpose. Transmit our credentials, Rylan instructed. Inform them we're seeking temporary sanctuary under Article 7 of the Accord. As Juno complied, Alara moved to stand beside Rylan at the command station. She had changed from the simple medical garb into clothing better suited for mobility, a form-fitting suit of midnight blue that complemented her opalescent skin. "They're here," she said quietly, her silver eyes fixed on the view screen. "Waiting. Watching. I can feel them." Rylan felt it too, through their bond, a sense of malevolent anticipation, like predators observing potential prey. "How many?" "At least 5, Alara replied. "Powerful ones, trained in combat applications of the Spring Flame." "Lead City has granted us provisional sanctuary," Juno reported. "We're cleared for docking at the diplomatic quarter." Rylan nodded. "Proceed. But maintain combat readiness. I want a security detail ready to escort the princess to the diplomatic compound." The Starfire descended into the specialized docking facilities of Lead City, massive airlock systems cycling to accommodate the vessel. Through the viewports, Rylan could see the incredible engineering marvel that was the underwater metropolis, buildings of impossibly strong materials extending through the liquid lead, their surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Docking complete," announced the navigation officer. "Local atmospheric conditions normal." Rylan turned to address the assembled security team. "Our mission is simple. Escort Princess Alara to the diplomatic compound and ensure her safety until we can negotiate more permanent arrangements. We operate under diplomatic immunity here, but that doesn't mean we won't face threats." He looked at each member of his team, soldiers who had served under him for years. "What I'm about to tell you goes against standard Empire protocol. Princess Alara is not to be treated as an asset or a research subject. She is under my personal protection, by bonds that transcend military authority. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now." Silence greeted his words. After a moment, Juno stepped forward. "We follow you, Captain. Whatever's happened, whatever this bond is, we trust your judgment." The simple statement of loyalty brought a lump to Rylan's throat. These were good soldiers, dedicated professionals who deserved better than being caught in the crossfire of a conflict beyond their understanding. "Thank you," he said simply. "Dr. Solon, you'll accompany us. Juno, you have command of the Starfire. At the first sign of coalition forces entering the system, I want to know." With preparations complete, Rylan led the way to the airlock as the massive doors cycled open, revealing the diplomatic quarter of Lead City. He felt Alara's presence at his side, a constant reminder of the life debt that bound them together. The diplomatic quarter was a marvel of architecture and engineering, soaring ceilings supported by columns of an iridescent material that seemed to shift and flow like the lead ocean beyond the city's boundaries. Representatives from dozens of species moved through the open spaces, engaged in the delicate dance of interstellar diplomacy that continued even as war raged across the galaxy. The Neutral Territories Accord prevents direct military action within these walls, Rylan explained to Alara as they moved through the Grand Concourse. "Even Morix wouldn't dare violate that openly." "He doesn't need to," Alara replied softly. "His corrupted Zirthai operate in shadows, beyond the reach of such agreements." They were approaching the central administrative complex when Rylan felt it, a prickling sensation at the base of his skull, a warning transmitted through the life bond. Alara tensed beside him, her skin shifting to a darker hue. "They're here," she whispered. "Close." Rylan signaled to his security team, who tightened their formation around the princess. Dr. Solon moved closer, her scientific curiosity momentarily overshadowed by the tension in the air. They had almost reached the safety of the administrative complex when the attack came, not with weapons or open aggression, but with a subtle distortion of reality around them. The air seemed to thicken, sounds becoming muffled and distorted. Rylan's security team faltered, several of them clutching their heads in sudden disorientation. "Psychic attack," Dr. Solon gasped, fumbling for a medical scanner. "They're targeting our neural pathways." Alara's crystalline crown flared with brilliant light as she extended her hands, creating a shimmering barrier around their group. The disorientation receded, but Rylan could see the strain on her face as she maintained the protection. "We need to move," he urged, drawing his sidearm. "Now!" They hurried toward the administrative complex. But their path was suddenly blocked by 5 figures that seemed to materialize from the very shadows of the concourse. Zirthai in form, but twisted and wrong. Their skin a mottled black and silver. The crystalline structures on their heads malformed and jagged like broken glass. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and where Alara's movements were graceful and fluid, these creatures moved with a jerking, predatory intensity. The corrupted Zirthai made no sound as they advanced, but Rylan felt their malevolence like a physical force pressing against Alara's protective barrier. "We cannot fight them here," Alara said urgently. "Too many innocents could be caught in the crossfire." Rylan assessed their options rapidly. The administrative complex was no longer viable, but the diplomatic quarter contained numerous private meeting chambers designed for sensitive negotiations. "This way," he decided, leading them toward a side corridor. "Dr. Sullen, alert lead city security. Tell them we have hostiles in the diplomatic quarter." As they retreated, the corrupted Zirthai followed at a measured pace, seemingly unconcerned about their quarry's temporary escape. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey was cornered. The side corridor led to a series of smaller meeting chambers. Rylan selected one and ushered his team inside, sealing the door behind them. "That won't hold them for long," Alara warned, her barrier flickering as she struggled to maintain it against the increasing psychic pressure. "It doesn't need to," Rylan replied. "Just long enough for lead city security to respond." Dr. Sullen shook her head grimly. "I'm not getting any response from security channels. Something's blocking communications." "Morix," Alara said, her voice tight with effort. "He's isolated us. The corrupted ones are merely his instruments." As if in confirmation of her words, the communication panel on the wall flickered to life, revealing the cold, calculating features of General Kiev Morix. "Captain Cade," he greeted, his tone almost cordial. "I see you've led our wayward princess directly to where we needed her to be. How considerate." "What have you done to lead city security?" Rylan demanded. Morix smiled thinly. "Nothing permanent. A targeted communications blackout, combined with a few well-placed agents. The benefits of planning ahead, Captain." His gaze shifted to Alara. "Princess Vesh, how long has it been since you witnessed the true potential of your kind's gifts? Too long hiding, restraining yourself, when you could have been embracing power." "The way you've embraced it," Alara retorted, her skin flashing with anger. "By corrupting my people, turning them into mindless weapons?" "Not mindless," Morix corrected. "Focused, purposed. Your kind spent centuries in contemplation and restraint, refusing to use the spring flame to its full potential. Such waste." Rylan could feel Alara's fury building through their bond, a dangerous heat that threatened to overwhelm her control. "What do you want, Morix?" he asked, trying to buy time. "What I've always wanted, Captain. The spring flame, harnessed and directed. With it, the Coalition can end this war swiftly, bring peace to a galaxy torn apart by imperial ambition." Morix leaned closer to the screen, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "You could be part of this. Cade, the life bond you share with the princess makes you uniquely valuable. Join us willingly, and you'll be treated with the respect your sacrifice deserves." "And if we refuse?" Rylan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then my associates will bring you in regardless," Morix said simply, "though I cannot guarantee your condition upon arrival." The general's image flickered slightly. "I'll give you 2 minutes to decide. Choose wisely, Captain." The communication panel went dark, leaving them in tense silence. "We cannot give him what he wants," Alara said firmly. "The spring flame was never meant to be a weapon of war. In the wrong hands, it could tear reality apart at the seams. Rylan looked at his security team, loyal soldiers now caught in a conflict far beyond standard military engagement. I won't order any of you to fight against these things. This isn't what you signed up for. The team's sergeant, a veteran of countless frontier skirmishes, stepped forward. With respect, sir, we signed up to follow you. That hasn't changed. Rylan felt a surge of gratitude for their loyalty. Then we need a plan. These corrupted Jirthe, what are their weaknesses? Alara's expression was grim. They are stronger than me in raw power, but their connection to the spring flame has been perverted, made unstable. They cannot maintain precise control for extended periods. So we force them to overextend, Rylan concluded. Dr. Solon, what about the environment? Can we use the lead ocean to our advantage somehow? Dr. Solon considered the question. The liquid lead conducts energy in ways that might disrupt their abilities. If we could breach one of the observation ports, create a controlled exposure. Too dangerous, Alara objected. A breach could compromise the entire sector's integrity. Not if we contain it, Dr. Solon countered. The meeting chambers are designed with emergency isolation protocols. We could use one as a trap. Rylan nodded slowly, a plan taking shape in his mind. We split up. My team creates a diversion, drawing most of the corrupted Jirthe away. Meanwhile, Dr. Solon prepares the trap in another chamber. Alara and I will lead the remaining pursuers there. A sound strategy, Alara agreed. But there's one flaw. The life bond makes us trackable. They'll know if we separate. Then we don't fully separate, Rylan decided. We maintain enough proximity to keep the bond active, but split their attention. As they finalized the details of their plan, Rylan felt the pressure against Alara's barrier intensifying. The corrupted Jirthe were done waiting. Time's up, he announced grimly. Places, everyone. And remember, these aren't conventional enemies. Standard tactics won't work. The barrier flickered and failed, just as the door to the meeting chamber began to glow with an eerie red light. The metal warping and melting under some unseen force. Rylan positioned himself at Alara's side, weapon ready, as the corrupted Jirthe prepared to breach their temporary sanctuary. Whatever happened next, he knew they faced the fight of their lives. The door dissolved in a shower of molten metal, and the corrupted Jirthe poured through the opening like living shadows. Their movements were unnaturally fluid, bodies shifting and reforming as they advanced. Rylan's security team opened fire immediately, energy pulses cutting through the air with precision. To Rylan's shock, the weapons fire seemed to pass through the corrupted ones with minimal effect, momentarily disrupting their forms before they reconstituted themselves. Conventional weapons won't stop them, Alara shouted over the chaos. They exist partially outside normal reality. As if to demonstrate, one of the corrupted Jirthe lunged forward with impossible speed, its arm elongating into a blade-like appendage that sliced through the armor of a security officer as if it were cloth. The man fell with a cry of pain, blood spreading across the floor. Now, Rylan commanded, and his team executed their planned maneuver, half of them creating a defensive perimeter, while the others supported Dr. Solon as she slipped through a side exit to prepare their trap. Alara's hands moved in complex patterns, weaving strands of blue-white energy that coalesced into barriers and projectiles. Where her power touched the corrupted ones, they recoiled, their forms destabilizing momentarily. The spring flame recognizes its own, she explained breathlessly, maintaining her assault. Even perverted as they are, they remain connected to its source. Rylan fought at her side, his weapon modified to emit a frequency Dr. Solon had theorized might disrupt the corrupted Jirthe's cohesion. It wasn't as effective as Alara's abilities, but it bought precious seconds when it connected. Through the life bond, Rylan could feel Alara's power flowing, a current of energy that both exhilarated and terrified with its raw potential. Each time she unleashed the spring flame, the sensation intensified, bleeding over into his own consciousness. "We need to move," he urged, as the security team's perimeter began to falter under the relentless assault. "Fall back to position 2. They retreated in practiced formation, maintaining covering fire as they withdrew down the corridor toward the chamber where Dr. Solon was preparing their trap. The corrupted Zirthai followed, their movements becoming more frenzied as they sensed their quarry attempting to escape. Through the bond, Rylan felt a sudden spike of alarm from Alara. "Behind us!" she warned, just as the corridor ahead was blocked by another corrupted Zirthai. This one larger and more grotesquely transformed than the others. Its crystalline crown had grown to encompass its entire head, jagged formations of blood-red crystal, pulsing with malevolent energy. "The Alpha," Alara whispered, her skin paling to an almost translucent white. "Morix's first successful conversion." The creature regarded them with eyes like burning coals, its mouth stretching in a parody of a smile. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. "The last princess," it purred, the mental voice like broken glass scraping against Rylan's consciousness. "How far the mighty have fallen, to hide behind human shields." "I don't hide," Alara replied, her voice steady despite the fear Rylan could feel through their bond. "And I am not alone." The Alpha's gaze shifted to Rylan, its mental probes attempting to penetrate his thoughts. "The bonded one," it observed. "Such potential, wasted on preservation rather than evolution." It extended a hand, the fingers elongating into writhing tendrils of energy. "General Morix sends his regards, Captain. He so looks forward to studying your unique connection." Rylan raised his weapon, knowing it would have little effect but unwilling to surrender without a fight. "Tell Morix he'll have to do better than sending his pets." The Alpha's expression twisted in anger, the mental pressure intensifying to a painful degree. "We are not pets, human. We are the future of the Zirthai, ascended beyond the limitations of flesh and conscience." "You are abominations," Alara countered, her own power rising to meet the Alpha's assault. Twisted reflections of what the spring flame was meant to be. The confrontation might have escalated further, but at that moment, Dr. Solon's voice came through Rylan's comm unit. "The trap is ready, Captain. Chamber 12B, East Corridor." The Alpha's head tilted, obviously intercepting the communication. "A trap? How? Predictable." Rylan exchanged a glance with Alara, a silent message passing between them through the life bond. In unison, they attacked, Rylan firing his disruptor directly at the Alpha's face while Alara unleashed a concentrated burst of the spring flame that momentarily blinded the corrupted Zirthai. "Now!" Rylan shouted, and his remaining security team executed a tactical withdrawal, splitting into prearranged groups to confuse their pursuers. Rylan and Alara sprinted down a side passage, the sounds of pursuit close behind them. The corridors of the diplomatic quarter twisted and turned, designed for privacy rather than ease of navigation. They used this to their advantage, taking routes that forced their pursuers to divide their attention. "Dr. Solon!" Rylan called into his comm as they ran. "Status?" "Ready," came the terse reply. "Chamber 12B is prepared. The observation port has been modified as discussed. I've evacuated all civilians from the adjacent sections." They rounded a final corner to find Dr. Solon waiting outside a sealed chamber, her expression tense but determined. "The controls are set," she informed them as they approached. "Once inside, I'll initiate the sequence remotely." Rylan nodded. "Get to safety. Rendezvous with the rest of the team at the secondary extraction point." Dr. Solon hesitated. "Captain, the calculations for this trap are imprecise. The reaction between the lead ocean and the spring flame could be more volatile than anticipated." "We don't have a choice," Rylan replied grimly. "Go. That's an order." as Dr. Solon reluctantly withdrew. Rylan and Alara positioned themselves at the chamber entrance. Through their bond, Rylan could sense the corrupted Jirthe closing in, drawn inexorably to the unique energy signature they emitted together. "Are you ready for this?" he asked Alara quietly. Her silver eyes met his, resolute despite the fear he could feel flowing between them. "I have spent my life running from what I am, Captain. Perhaps it is time I embraced it fully." The door to Chamber 12B slid open, revealing a spacious meeting room dominated by a massive observation port that looked out into the liquid lead ocean. The transparent material of the port had been modified according to Dr. Solon's specifications, weakened in strategic locations, but reinforced around the edges to prevent catastrophic failure. Rylan and Alara entered, the door sealing behind them with a soft hiss. Almost immediately, the far wall began to glow with that same eerie red light they had witnessed earlier. "They're coming through," Alara observed, moving to position herself near the observation port. "The Alpha leads them. I can feel its rage." Rylan took up a defensive stance, weapon ready despite its limited effectiveness. "Remember the plan. Let them commit fully before we trigger the breach." The wall dissolved, revealing the Alpha and 3 of its corrupted brethren. They entered cautiously, sensing the trap but too confident in their abilities to retreat. "Nowhere left to run, Princess," the Alpha projected, its mental voice dripping with malice. "Surrender the spring flame, and perhaps we will allow your pet human to live." Alara's skin rippled with defiance, the crystalline structures around her head pulsing with increasing intensity. "You were once my people," she said sadly. "Before Morix corrupted you, twisted the gift of our ancestors into this perversion. We were weak," the Alpha snarled, "hiding our power, constraining our potential with outdated notions of balance and harmony." It advanced, the other corrupted Zirthe spreading out to flank them. "The spring flame was never meant to be contained, Princess. It yearns for release, for expression. We have given it that freedom." "At the cost of your souls," Alara replied. She glanced at Rylan, a silent signal passing between them. "But perhaps you're right about one thing. The spring flame should not be constrained." With that, she unleashed her power, not at the corrupted Zirthe, but at the observation port. The weakened sections of the transparent material began to fracture under the assault, spiderweb cracks spreading across its surface. The Alpha's eyes widened in realization. "No!" it screamed mentally, lunging forward with inhuman speed. Too late. The observation port shattered with a deafening crack, liquid lead pouring into the chamber in a torrent of molten metal. Dr. Solon's modifications worked as intended, channeling the breach in specific directions, rather than allowing catastrophic failure. Alara raised her hands, her entire body glowing with the power of the spring flame. Where the liquid lead touched her energy field, it transformed, becoming a glowing plasma that surrounded the corrupted Jirthe like a living net. The Alpha howled in mental agony as the plasma constricted around it, disrupting the perverted connection to the spring flame that sustained its corrupted form. The other Jirthe thrashed and twisted, their bodies beginning to destabilize under the combined assault of the lead and Alara's power. Rylan struggled to maintain his footing as the chamber filled with swirling currents of lead and energy. The life bond between him and Alara flared to unprecedented intensity, their minds and spirits merging in a way that transcended physical boundaries. Through her eyes, he could see the true nature of the spring flame, not merely a power source, but a fundamental connection to the underlying fabric of reality itself. "Now, Rylan," Alara called, her voice strained with effort. "The sequence." Fighting against the chaotic forces swirling around them. Rylan made his way to the control panel Dr. Solon had prepared. He input the final command, activating the chamber's emergency protocols. Powerful energy fields sprang to life, containing the breach while simultaneously amplifying its effects within the confined space. The corrupted Jirthay were caught in a perfect storm of energies, the liquid lead disrupting their physical forms, Alara's pure spring flame counteracting their perverted connection to its power, and the containment fields preventing escape. The Alpha made one final, desperate lunge toward Alara, its form dissolving even as it moved. "This changes nothing," it projected, the mental voice fading like a dying echo. "Morix knows what you are now, what you can do. He will never stop hunting you." "Let him come," Alara replied, her voice resonating with newfound determination. "I am done running." With a final surge of power that sent Rylan staggering from the backlash through their bond, Alara completed the trap. The corrupted Jirthay imploded in flashes of red and blue energy, their perverted forms finally failing under the combined assault. As the last of the corrupted ones dissolved, the emergency systems activated fully, sealing the breach and purging the chamber of liquid lead. Rylan and Alara stood in the aftermath, surrounded by the remnants of energy that slowly dissipated into the air. Through their bond, Rylan felt Alara's exhaustion, but also something new, a sense of purpose and resolve that had been missing before. She had confronted her demons, faced the twisted reflection of what her people could become, and emerged stronger for it. "It's over," he said quietly, moving to her side. "No," Alara replied, her silver eyes meeting his. "It's only beginning. Morix will send others, and your empire still seeks to control the spring flame. This was merely the first battle in a war that has been brewing for generations." Rylan knew she was right. Their victory here was temporary at best. But something had changed fundamentally in both of them. The life bond that had begun as an accident of fate now felt like something more. A partnership forged in the crucible of shared danger and mutual respect. "Then we face it together," he said simply. "Whatever comes next." Alara's skin shimmered with a gentle light, the crystalline structures around her head softening into a more natural configuration. "Together," she agreed, bound by choice as much as by fate. As they made their way out of the chamber to rendezvous with the rest of their team, Rylan felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in years. His loyalty to the Empire had been based on duty and tradition, a soldier following orders without questioning their purpose. Now, bonded to Alara and witness to the power she wielded, he understood that some responsibilities transcended factional allegiances. The life debt had changed everything, and as they prepared to leave Lead City, to seek sanctuary in the uncharted regions where neither the Empire nor the Coalition held sway, Rylan embraced that change. Whatever the future held, whatever challenges awaited them, they would face it as one, human and Zirthi, bound together by forces stronger than either of them could have imagined. The journey back to the Starfire was tense but uneventful. Lead City security had finally been alerted to the situation, but with the immediate threat neutralized, they were more concerned with containing the damage to the diplomatic quarter than pursuing those responsible. The Neutral Territories Accord provided a measure of protection, at least until formal investigations could be conducted. Juno met them at the docking bay, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. "The Coalition destroyer entered the system 30 minutes ago," she reported as they boarded. "They're maintaining position outside the exclusion zone, but they've launched communication probes toward Lead City administration." "Morix," Rylan surmised grimly. "Trying to negotiate our surrender through official channels." "Can the Starfire outrun them?" Alara asked. Juno nodded. "With the jump engines at full capacity, yes. But we need a destination, Captain, somewhere beyond both Empire and Coalition space." Rylan considered their options. The mapped galaxy was increasingly divided between the warring factions, with neutral territories shrinking by the day. They needed somewhere truly beyond reach, yet capable of supporting life. "The Zenith Prime system," Alara suggested, her silver eyes distant, as if seeing across vast distances. It lies at the edge of the galactic rim, past the Crimson Nebula. Neither faction has established a presence there. It's a long jump, Juno warned after consulting the navigation charts. We'd need to make at least 3 smaller jumps to reach it. Then plot the course, Ryland decided. We leave as soon as the ship is ready. As preparations for departure began, Ryland found himself drawn to the observation deck, seeking a moment of solitude to process everything that had happened. The life bond with Alara had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand, opening his mind to perspectives and sensations beyond human experience. He was gazing out at the crystalline rings of Titan Arc when he sensed Alara's presence behind him. Through their bond, he felt her approach before he heard her footsteps, a gentle warmth that had become increasingly familiar. Your crew follows you without question, she observed, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. Even knowing it means defying your empire. They're good soldiers, Ryland replied. Loyal to each other first, the mission second, and the empire third. It's how we've survived on the frontier. Alara's skin rippled with thoughtful colors, blues and purples flowing like watercolors across her opalescent surface. And you? Where does your loyalty lie now, Captain? It was a question Ryland had been asking himself since Tethys 9. His entire adult life had been dedicated to the Empire, fighting its battles, extending its reach, believing in its fundamental right to rule. But recent events had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about the regime he served. My loyalty is to life, he said finally. To preserving it, protecting it, especially when others would weaponize or destroy it. He turned to face her directly. The spring flame is too powerful to belong to either faction. If the Empire or the Coalition gained control of it, they would use it to annihilate their enemies, Alara finished, and in doing so, risk tearing apart the very fabric of reality. The spring flame was never meant to be a weapon. Ryland, it was a gift to my ancestors, entrusted to the royal line as guardians, not conquerors. Through their bond, Ryland sensed the weight of responsibility she carried, generations of tradition and purpose distilled into a single being, the last of her kind who truly understood the nature of their gift. What will you do? He asked. When we reach Zenith Prime? When you're finally free from pursuit? Alara's gaze returned to the stars beyond the viewport. I don't know, she admitted. For so long, survival has been my only goal. The preservation of the spring flame, the continuation of my line. These were duties passed to me by my ancestors. But now, her voice trailed off. But Ryland felt the unspoken thoughts through their connection. Doubt, uncertainty, but also a flickering hope that perhaps there could be more to her existence than eternal flight. We'll figure it out, he assured her. Together. A gentle alert chimed throughout the ship, signaling imminent departure. Ryland and Alara made their way to the bridge, where Juno awaited with the final launch preparations. All systems ready, Captain, she reported. Lead City Control has granted us departure clearance. She hesitated, then added, There's one more thing. We received a transmission from an anonymous source within the diplomatic quarter. It was encrypted with an Empire intelligence cipher. Ryland frowned. What did it say? Just coordinates, Juno replied, displaying them on the tactical screen, along with a single word, friends. Alara studied the coordinates, her expression thoughtful. This location, it's within the Crimson Nebula, near our projected route to Zenith Prime. Could be a trap, Ryland said cautiously. Or allies, Alara countered. There are those within both the Empire and the Coalition who recognize the dangers of weaponizing the spring flame, who understand what's truly at stake in this war. Ryland considered the possibilities. The prudent course would be to avoid any potential ambush, to stick to their original plan of reaching Zenith Prime as quickly as possible. But if there were indeed allies willing to help them, resources that could aid their cause, Adjust our course, he decided. We'll investigate these coordinates, but with extreme caution. Full stealth approach. Weapons hot. As the Starfire disengaged from the docking clamps and began its ascent through the lead ocean toward the upper atmosphere, Rylan felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in his military career, he was charting his own course, guided by principles rather than orders. The life debt that bound him to Alara had started as an accident, a split-second decision made in the heat of battle, but it had evolved into something more profound, a partnership that transcended species and faction, united by a shared understanding of what truly mattered in a galaxy torn apart by war. The Starfire broke free of Titanarch's atmosphere, accelerating toward the jump point that would begin their journey to the Crimson Nebula. Behind them, the Coalition destroyer maintained its position, unwilling to violate the neutrality of the Titanarch system, but a constant reminder of the forces aligned against them. "Jump engines engaged," announced the navigation officer. "Coordinates locked. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. Space folded around them, stars stretching into streaks of light as the Starfire entered the dimensional corridor that would carry them to their next destination. Rylan and Alara stood side by side on the bridge, their shared bond a quiet strength amidst the uncertainty that lay ahead. Whatever awaited them at the mysterious coordinates, whatever challenges they would face in the days and weeks to come, one thing was certain. The life debt that had begun with a blade, meant for death, had transformed into something life-affirming, a connection that might, against all odds, offer hope to a galaxy in desperate need of it. The journey to the Crimson Nebula took 3 days, during which the Starfire maintained full stealth protocols. The nebula itself was a vast cloud of ionized gas and dust, its characteristic red hue the result of hydrogen alpha emissions. Navigation through such dense cosmic matter was treacherous, requiring constant adjustments and specialized shielding to prevent damage to the ship's systems. As they approached the coordinates provided by their mysterious contact, tension aboard the bridge was palpable. Rylan had ordered battle stations maintained, unwilling to risk being caught unprepared if the message proved to be a trap. "Sensors are limited in this environment," Juno reported, frustration evident in her voice. "The nebula's radiation is interfering with our scans." "That's why it would make an ideal hiding place," Rylan observed. "For friend or foe." Alara stood silently at his side, her attention focused inward. Through their bond, Rylan could sense her extending her awareness, using abilities that transcended conventional detection methods. "There," she said suddenly, pointing to a section of the view screen that appeared empty, save for swirling crimson gas. "A ship. No, multiple vessels, concealed within the nebula's densest regions." Juno adjusted the sensors, enhancing the image with specialized filters. Slowly, shapes began to emerge from the cosmic haze, sleek vessels of unfamiliar design, neither Empire nor Coalition in origin. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Text only, encrypted." The message appeared on the main screen. "Identify Spring Flame Carrier and Bonded One." Rylan glanced at Alara, who nodded slightly. "Respond," he instructed. "Confirm identification and request parley." The reply came almost immediately. "Follow beacon to Sanctuary. Maintain current velocity." A subtle navigation signal appeared on their systems, a pathway through the nebula that would have been impossible to detect without precise coordinates. "What do you think?" Rylan asked Alara quietly. She considered for a moment, her skin shifting through thoughtful hues. "I sense no immediate threat," she replied. "And if they meant us harm, they could have attacked already. The nebula offers perfect concealment for an ambush." "Follow the beacon," Rylan decided, "but maintain combat readiness. At the first sign of hostile intent, we jump out of here." The Starfire adjusted course, following the faint signal, deeper into the crimson depths of the nebula. Navigation became increasingly treacherous as the cosmic matter grew denser, limiting visibility to mere kilometers in any direction. After nearly an hour of careful progress, the nebula began to thin, revealing a sight that drew gasps from the bridge crew. Before them floated a massive structure, not a conventional space station, but what appeared to be an asteroid that had been hollowed out and modified. Its surface was dotted with lights and docking ports, while defensive arrays were subtly integrated into the natural formations of the rock. "Zenith Prime Sanctuary," Alara whispered, recognition in her voice. "I thought it was just a legend, a story told among my people." "You know this place?" Rylan asked. "By reputation only. A haven created by those who saw the destructive potential of the war before it began." Her silver eyes were wide with wonder. "It was said to have been established by a coalition of scientists, philosophers, and mystics from dozens of species, dedicated to preserving knowledge and life while the rest of the galaxy tore itself apart." As the Starfire approached, several of the smaller vessels they had detected earlier moved to escort them, their designs an eclectic mix of technologies that defied standard classification. "We're being hailed," the communications officer reported, video feed this time. The main screen activated, revealing a face that caused Rylan to tense in shock. Captain Juno Rhee, not the one standing beside him on the bridge, but her identical twin, with subtle differences that became apparent upon closer inspection. This Juno's hair was longer, and a thin scar traced a line from her left temple to her jaw. "Captain Cade," the woman greeted, her expression neutral, but not unfriendly. "Princess Alara, welcome to Sanctuary. I apologize for the secrecy, but in these times, caution is essential." Rylan glanced at his Juno, who appeared equally stunned. "You have us at a disadvantage," he replied carefully. The woman on the screen smiled slightly. "I understand your confusion. My name is Juno Rhee, but not the one you know. I am what you might call an advanced scout. I've been working within the Coalition for years, gathering intelligence and identifying potential allies." "Impossible," his Juno said flatly. "I have no sister, no clone." "Not a clone," the other Juno corrected. "A variant. But that explanation will have to wait until you're safely docked. The nebula provides cover, but not indefinitely. Coalition patrols have been increasing in this sector." Rylan's mind raced with possibilities, none of them entirely comforting. Yet the life bond with Alara remained calm, detecting no immediate danger from this strange encounter. "Proceed to Docking Bay 3, the other Juno instructed. "Leave your weapons aboard your vessel. They won't function within Sanctuary anyway, a precaution we maintain for all visitors. I'll meet you personally at the airlock." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. "Captain," his Juno said quietly, "this could still be an elaborate trap." "Agreed," Rylan nodded. "But we're running out of options and fuel. If there's even a chance this sanctuary can offer us protection." He turned to Alara. "What does your instinct tell you?" Alara's crystalline crown pulsed gently as she considered the question. "The spring flame detects no malevolence from this place," she said finally. "There is power here, old power, but it flows differently than that of the corrupted ones. I believe we should proceed, but with caution." "Juno, you have command of the Starfire," Rylan decided. "Keep the engines hot and be prepared for immediate departure if necessary. Dr. Solon, you'll accompany Alara and me to meet our hosts." As the Starfire maneuvered toward the designated docking port, Rylan felt a strange sensation through the life bond, not fear or apprehension, but something akin to recognition, as if Alara's deeper connection to the spring flame was responding to something within the sanctuary. The docking procedure completed with practiced efficiency, the Starfire's airlock system integrating seamlessly with the stations. As promised, The other Juno awaited them at the connection point, flanked by two figures of different species. One, a tall, insectoid being with iridescent carapace. The other humanoid, but with skin that seemed to refract light like a prism. Captain Cade. The other Juno greeted formally. Princess Alara, Dr. Solon, welcome to Sanctuary. She gestured to her companions. This is Architect Zari of the Vespid Collective, and Archivist Prel, formerly of the Oraxis Academy of Sciences. The insectoid being, Zari, made a complex gesture with its upper limbs that somehow conveyed respect without words. The humanoid Prel simply nodded, rainbow patterns flowing across their skin in what might have been their species' equivalent of a smile. Thank you for the welcome, Rylan replied cautiously. Though I admit, we have many questions. All in good time, the other Juno assured them. First, let us move to more comfortable surroundings. The Council is eager to meet with you both. As they were led through the corridors of Sanctuary, Rylan was struck by the diversity of beings they encountered. Representatives of dozens of species, some familiar from his frontier explorations, others entirely unknown, moved about with purpose. Despite their differences, there was a harmony to their interactions that felt almost orchestrated, as if each individual understood their role in a greater whole. The architecture of Sanctuary reflected this same philosophy. Natural rock formations preserved and enhanced rather than replaced. Technology integrated seamlessly with the asteroid structure. Living gardens grew in open spaces, their plants carefully selected from multiple worlds to create sustainable ecosystems. How long has this place existed? Dr. Solon asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. Sanctuary was established 23 years ago, Archivist Prel answered, their voice melodic and fluid. When the first signs of fracture appeared in the Empire, a group of forward-thinking individuals from various factions recognized the coming storm. They sought to create a haven where knowledge could be preserved and life protected, regardless of political allegiance. And how many live here? Rylan inquired, his tactical mind automatically assessing the population and resources. Currently, approximately 12,000 permanent residents, the other Juno replied, with another 5,000 who come and go as their missions require. We maintain outposts and contacts throughout both Empire and Coalition territory. Alara, who had been silent during their walk, suddenly stopped, her attention drawn to a chamber they were passing. Through the open doorway, Rylan glimpsed what appeared to be a meditation space, where several beings sat in contemplative poses around a central column of softly glowing energy. The resonance chamber, Architect Zari explained, the translation of its clicking speech appearing as text in Rylan's field of vision. Those who possess sensitivity to the underlying currents of reality come here to attune themselves, to maintain balance. You have other Jirthe here, Alara stated. Not a question but a recognition. 3 survivors of the purges, the other Juno confirmed. None of royal lineage, but all dedicated to preserving the true purpose of the spring flame. They continued their journey deeper into Sanctuary, eventually arriving at a large circular chamber. A round table occupied the center, surrounded by 13 chairs of varying designs to accommodate different physiologies. 9 of the seats were already occupied by a diverse array of beings, each emanating an aura of quiet authority. The Council of Sanctuary, the other Juno announced. Representatives chosen for wisdom, rather than political power. They oversee our efforts to mitigate the war's impact and prepare for what comes after. A tall, elderly human, with a neatly trimmed white beard, rose from his seat. Captain Terran Rylan Cade, he greeted, his voice deep and resonant. Princess Alara Vesh of the Jirthe, I am Dr. Iridian Kane, formerly Chief Xenobiologist of the Oraxis Science Directorate. Welcome to what may be the last truly neutral territory in our war-torn galaxy. Rylan felt Alara tense slightly beside him, a flicker of recognition passing through their bond. "Dr. Kane," she acknowledged, her tone carefully neutral. "Your reputation precedes you." "As does yours, Princess," Kane replied with a respectful nod. "The last carrier of the Royal Spring Flame. We had hoped your line had survived, though confirmation eluded us until recently." "Until we formed the life bond," Rylan surmised. "Precisely," Kane confirmed. "The energy signature created by your unique connection sent ripples through the underlying fabric of reality, subtle, but detectable to those who know what to look for." He gestured to the empty seats at the table. "Please join us. We have much to discuss." As they took their places, Rylan noticed that 3 seats remained empty, even after they were seated. "Are we waiting for others?" he asked. "Those seats remain vacant by design," explained a serpentine being with luminous scales. "They represent voices yet to join our council. Perspectives we acknowledge are missing from our deliberations." Dr. Kane leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped before him. "Captain Cade, Princess Alara, you have stumbled into the center of a conflict far older and more significant than the current war between Empire and Coalition. The Spring Flame is merely one manifestation of powers that have shaped our galaxy since before recorded history." "The primal forces," Alara said quietly. "My ancestors spoke of them, though much of that knowledge was lost during the separation." Kane nodded gravely. "Indeed. What the Jirthe call the Spring Flame. Other cultures have named differently. The Quantum Wellspring, the Void Essence, the Primordial Song, all refer to the same fundamental energy that exists between the layers of reality, accessible only to those with the genetic or technological means to perceive it." "General Morix knows of this power," Rylan stated. "He's been corrupting Zirthe, turning them into weapons." "Kiev Morix was once one of us," the other Juno revealed, her expression hardening. "A founding member of Sanctuary, until his ambition overtook his wisdom. He became convinced that the only way to end the cycle of war was to control the primal forces directly, to reshape reality according to his vision of order. He betrayed Sanctuary," Kane continued, "stole research and technology that should never have been weaponized. The corrupted Zirthe are the result of his perversion of our understanding, beings whose natural connection to the Spring Flame has been twisted, forced into destructive channels rather than harmonious ones." "And the Empire?" Rylan asked. "What is their role in all this?" A cynical smile touched Kane's lips. "The Empire's leadership remains largely ignorant of the true nature of what they seek. They understand only that the Zirthe possess powers that could turn the tide of war. Their approach has been containment and study rather than corruption, but the end result would be equally catastrophic." Alara's skin had paled during this explanation, the crystalline structures around her head dimming to a faint glow. "So I am caught between 2 forces, both seeking to use the Spring Flame as a weapon," she said softly. "A weapon that could tear reality apart." "Not just a weapon, Princess," Kane corrected gently. "The Spring Flame, in its purest form, is a creative force, capable of healing the very wounds in reality that war has created. That is why your royal line was entrusted with its stewardship, not to wield power, but to maintain balance." Through their bond, Rylan felt Alara's turmoil, the weight of responsibility, the fear of failure, but also a growing resolve. "Then why bring us here?" he asked. "What does Sanctuary want from us?" The Serpentine Council member answered, its voice a melodic hiss. "Not from you, Captain Cade. With you. The life bond you share with Princess Alara has created something unprecedented, a human with direct access to the Spring Flame through the royal bloodline. Such a connection was thought impossible until now. It changes everything," Kane added. "The potential for understanding, for bridging the gap between species and factions. You represent hope, Captain, hope that humans and Zirthe can coexist not just as allies, but as partners in shaping a better future. The implications were staggering. Rylan had viewed the life bond as a consequence of his split-second decision on Tethys 9, a mystical connection that had complicated his mission. Now he was being told it might be the key to resolving a conflict that spanned millennia. "We offer you sanctuary here," the other Juno said. "Protection from both Empire and Coalition. But more than that, we offer purpose, a chance to use your unique bond to help end this war without the catastrophic use of the spring flame as a weapon." "How?" Alara asked, the simple question heavy with meaning. Kane exchanged glances with the other council members before responding. "By revealing the truth to both factions, demonstrating the real consequences of weaponizing the primal forces, by showing that cooperation between species, symbolized by your bond, offers a better path forward than domination." "You're talking about making us symbols," Rylan observed, not entirely comfortable with the idea. "Figureheads for a movement." "Leaders," Kane corrected. "Informed by your experiences on both sides of this conflict. The life bond gives you unique credibility. Captain, you've felt the spring flame through Princess Alara. You understand what's at stake in a way no other human can claim." A thoughtful silence fell over the chamber as Rylan and Alara absorbed the implications of what was being proposed. Through their bond, they shared unspoken questions and concerns, weighing options and consequences. "We would need time," Alara finally said, "to consider your proposal, to understand what you're truly asking of us." "Of course," Kane agreed readily. "Sanctuary offers you respite, a chance to recover from your ordeals and to explore the potential of your bond in safety. All we ask is that you keep an open mind to the possibilities." As the council meeting concluded, Rylan felt both overwhelmed and strangely hopeful. The universe had suddenly expanded, revealing layers of complexity and purpose beyond the simple dictates of military duty. The life bond that had begun as an accidental connection now seemed like something more, perhaps even destiny, though he had never been one to believe in such concepts. The other Juno led them to private quarters prepared for their stay, comfortable accommodations that somehow managed to blend aspects of both human and Zirthe aesthetic preferences. "Rest," she advised them. "Recover. When you're ready, there is much of Sanctuary to explore. People who can help you understand the full potential of your bond." When they were finally alone, Rylan turned to Alara, whose opalescent skin shimmered with conflicting emotions. "What do you think?" he asked simply. Alara moved to the viewport that looked out into the crimson depths of the nebula. "I think we have stumbled into something far larger than either of us imagined," she replied. "The spring flame has always been a burden of responsibility for my line, but this suggests a purpose I never anticipated." Rylan joined her at the viewport, their reflections overlapping in the transparent material. "They want to use us," he observed, neither accepting nor rejecting the notion. "Yes," Alara agreed. "But perhaps for a cause worth being used for." She turned to face him directly, her silver eyes searching his. "What does your heart tell you, Rylan? Beyond duty, beyond the bond that connects us, what do you believe is the right path?" It was a question that cut to the core of his being, challenging the foundations upon which he had built his life. The Empire had given him purpose, structure, a sense of belonging, but recent events had revealed the moral compromises required by such loyalty, the cost of unquestioning obedience. "I believe," he said slowly, "that some things are worth fighting for beyond faction or species. Life, freedom, the right of beings to determine their own destiny without becoming pawns in someone else's war." He met her gaze steadily. "And I believe that what we share, this bond, happened for a reason. Whether we call it fate or cosmic coincidence, it's given us an opportunity few ever receive, to make a difference on a scale that matters." Alara's skin brightened at his words, the crystalline structures around her head pulsing with inner light. Then, perhaps we should embrace it, she suggested. Not as symbols or weapons, but as partners in creating something new, a bridge between worlds that have been separated for too long. Through their bond, Rylan felt her resolve strengthening, her natural caution giving way to determined purpose. It resonated with his own emerging conviction that they had been brought together, not merely by chance, but by forces that recognized their potential together. Partners, he agreed, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Alara looked at his outstretched hand with curiosity, then placed her slender fingers against his palm. Where they touched, a soft glow emanated, the spring flame responding to their shared intent, sealing a pact more binding than any formal alliance. The life debt began with sacrifice, she said softly. Perhaps it continues with creation. As they stood together, human and Zirthe united by forces beyond conventional understanding, Rylan felt a sense of rightness that transcended duty or obligation. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Morix's corrupted forces, the Empire's pursuit, the uncertain path of becoming leaders in a movement for peace, they would face them together, bound not just by mystical energy, but by choice and shared purpose. The spring flame had brought them together through a blade meant for death. Now, against all odds, it offered the possibility of new life for them, and perhaps for a galaxy torn apart by centuries of conflict. The days that followed their arrival at Sanctuary passed in a blur of discovery and integration. Rylan and Alara were introduced to the various communities within the asteroid haven, each contributing uniquely to its mission of preservation and preparation. The resonance chamber became a focal point for Alara's exploration of her abilities. Under the guidance of the 3 surviving Zirthe, none of royal lineage but all deeply knowledgeable about the spring flame's true nature, she began to access aspects of her power that had lain dormant during her years of hiding. The royal line was never meant to merely carry the spring flame, explained Taylor, the eldest of the Zirthe mentors. They were intended to be its conscious stewards, directing its flow to heal reality's wounds. Wounds? Alara questioned, her crystalline crown pulsing with curiosity. Reality is not static, Taylor elaborated. It bends and flexes with the movements of conscious beings. But when too much suffering accumulates, when too many lives are extinguished in violence, tears form in its fabric. The spring flame was gifted to your ancestors to mend these tears, to maintain the balance between creation and destruction. Through their bond, Rylan felt Alara's understanding deepen, her connection to the spring flame growing more nuanced with each session in the resonance chamber. He often observed these sessions, fascinated by the transformation taking place within her, and, by extension, within himself. The life bond continued to evolve, becoming less a mystical tether and more a shared consciousness that allowed each to experience aspects of the other's perspective while maintaining their distinct identities. Rylan found himself increasingly sensitive to the underlying currents of energy that Alara perceived naturally, while she gained insight into the strategic thinking and pragmatic assessment that had made him an effective frontier officer. Dr. Solon threw herself into Sanctuary's research facilities, collaborating with scientists from a dozen species to document and understand the unique properties of their bond. "It's unprecedented," she reported excitedly, after a particularly intensive scanning session. "The molecular structure of your cells is harmonizing, Captain, not becoming identical, but rather complementary, like 2 distinct instruments playing the same melody." Meanwhile, Juno, his Juno, maintained a professional distance, overseeing the Starfire's integration into Sanctuary's defense network, while keeping a wary eye on their hosts. Her counterpart, the other Juno who had guided them to Sanctuary, proved equally reserved, their interactions formal but respectful. It was Dr. Kane who finally brought the two Junos together, along with Rylan and Alara, for a private meeting in his personal quarters, a space filled with artifacts and specimens from across the galaxy, testaments to a lifetime of xenobiological study. "It's time you understood the full scope of what we face," Kane said without preamble, "and why your bond represents such a critical development." He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room with a three-dimensional representation of the galaxy, certain regions highlighted in pulsing red. "These are reality fractures," he explained. "Tears in the fabric of existence caused by the concentrated suffering and death of the Civil War. Each major battle, each planetary bombardment, each genocide creates new fractures. Left unaddressed, they will eventually collapse, creating cascading failures throughout our dimension." "The Empire knows nothing of this," Rylan observed. "Nor does the Coalition leadership," the other Juno added. "Only Morix and his inner circle understand the true nature of what's happening, and they believe they can control the collapse, reshape reality in its aftermath." "They're wrong," Kane said flatly. "No single consciousness, no matter how advanced, can direct such fundamental forces without catastrophic consequences. The arrogance of believing otherwise is what drove Morix from our ranks." "What does this have to do with our bond?" Alara asked, though Rylan sensed she already suspected the answer. Kane's weathered face softened slightly. "The spring flame, in its purest expression, can heal these fractures, but only when wielded with perfect balance between species. Your ancestors understood this, Princess. It's why the Jirthe royal line maintained diplomatic relations with so many worlds before the separation. And now that balance exists within our bond," Rylan concluded, "human and Zirthe, joined by the spring flame." "Precisely," Kane confirmed. "What began as a life debt has evolved into something we've theorized, but never witnessed. A true symbiosis that allows the spring flame to flow between species without corruption or degradation." The other Juno stepped forward, her expression unusually earnest. "Captain, you've been wondering about my existence, why I appear identical to your executive officer, yet possess a different history and allegiance." "The thought had crossed my mind," Rylan acknowledged dryly. "I am not from your timeline," she revealed. "In the reality I originated from, the war between Empire and Coalition escalated beyond containment. The reality fractures collapsed, causing dimensional rifts that allowed some of us to cross into adjacent timelines, including this one." "You're saying you're from the future?" Rylan asked incredulously. "A potential future," Kane clarified. "One of many possible outcomes, and among the darker ones, Juno and several others managed to cross over before their reality completely destabilized. They brought warnings, knowledge that has helped us prepare for what may come in this timeline. This is why Sanctuary exists." The other Juno continued. "Not just as a haven from the current war, but as preparation for the greater crisis that may follow if the reality fractures are not healed." Rylan's Juno, who had remained silent throughout this explanation, finally spoke. "And you believe Captain Cade and Princess Alara can prevent this outcome? Through their bond? They represent the first successful bridge between human and Zirthe consciousness," Kane replied. "A prototype, if you will, for the kind of cross-species harmony needed to address the fractures. But they cannot do it alone, nor should they have to bear that responsibility unassisted." "What are you proposing?" Rylan asked directly. Kane exchanged glances with the other Juno before answering. "A mission, not just to hide or survive, but to actively intervene. To demonstrate the power of your bond by healing a significant reality fracture, proving to both factions that cooperation, rather than weaponization, is the only viable path forward." "You want us to go back out there," Alara surmised. "To leave the safety of Sanctuary and confront both Empire and Coalition forces." "With support," the other Juno assured them. "Sanctuary has operatives throughout both territories. resources that can be mobilized to assist you. But yes, ultimately, the demonstration must be public, undeniable, and significant enough to force both factions to reassess their approach to the spring flame. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on a particular system near the border between Empire and Coalition space. A planet orbited a dying star, its surface visibly scarred by massive weapons bombardment. Alteris 7, Kane identified it. Once a thriving agricultural world, now a wasteland after 3 years of being caught in the crossfire between factions. The suffering of its population has created one of the largest reality fractures we've detected. If you could heal this wound, publicly and verifiably, it would be a statement neither side could ignore. Rylan finished, understanding the strategy. A demonstration of power without destruction, of healing rather than weaponization. Exactly, Kane nodded. But I won't pretend it wouldn't be dangerous. Both Empire and Coalition forces maintain a presence in the Alteris system. And Morix, once he detects your energy signature, will undoubtedly send his corrupted Jirthe to intervene. Through their bond, Rylan felt Alara's mixture of determination and apprehension. The prospect of using the spring flame so openly, after years of concealment, both exhilarated and terrified her. Yet beneath these emotions ran a current of purpose, a recognition that this was perhaps what her powers had always been intended for. We need time, Rylan decided, speaking for both of them. To prepare, to train, to fully understand what we'd be attempting. Of course, Kane agreed readily. The fracture at Alteris 7 is stable for now. A few more weeks will make little difference, and proper preparation will significantly improve your chances of success. As the meeting concluded, Rylan and Alara found themselves walking along one of Sanctuary's arboretum paths, surrounded by carefully preserved plant life from dozens of worlds. The artificial lighting mimicked natural sunlight, creating an illusion of open sky despite their location deep within the asteroid. "What are you thinking?" Rylan asked, though the bond gave him some insight into her emotional state. "I'm thinking that for the first time since my parents were killed, I have a clear purpose," Alara replied, her silver eyes reflective. "The spring flame has always been a burden, a target painted on my back. Now I begin to understand why my ancestors guarded it so carefully, not just for power, but for healing." "It's a lot to take in," Rylan acknowledged. "Alternate timelines, reality fractures, not exactly what they cover in Empire tactical training." A sound like wind chimes emanated from Alara, her species' version of laughter. "Nor in Royal Zirthe education, I assure you." Her expression sobered. "But Kane's proposal makes sense, doesn't it? Using our bond not to hide, but to demonstrate a better path forward." Rylan nodded slowly. "Strategically, it's sound. Show rather than tell. Create an undeniable example that forces both factions to reconsider their approach." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "But it's not just strategy that makes me think we should do this. It's right. It feels right." "The life debt," Alara mused. "Perhaps this is how it was always meant to be repaid. Not life for life in the simplest sense, but life renewed, life restored to a world that has suffered too much death." As they continued their walk, planning and possibilities flowing between them through their ever-strengthening bond, neither noticed the figure observing them from a concealed alcove, Rylan's Juno. Her expression troubled as she activated a small communication device unlike any issued by Sanctuary. "Confirmation received," she whispered into the device. "The spring flame carrier and the bonded one will attempt to heal the Alteris 7 fracture, awaiting further instructions." The response came not in words, but in a coded pulse that only she could interpret. Her face hardened with resolve as she deactivated the device and slipped away. her true allegiance now firmly established, though to whom, and for what purpose, remained to be seen. The weeks that followed were intense, filled with preparation and training. Rylan and Alara spent hours each day in the resonance chamber, learning to channel the spring flame with precision and purpose. Under Taylor's guidance, they developed techniques to harmonize their consciousnesses, allowing the power to flow between them without loss or distortion. The life bond provides the connection, Taylor explained, but conscious intent directs the flow. You must learn to think as one, while remaining two distinct beings. Unified purpose expressed through complementary actions. The process was exhausting, but exhilarating. Each successful synchronization brought new insights, expanding their understanding of both the spring flame and each other. Rylan discovered aspects of Alara's consciousness that transcended simple thought or emotion, perceptions of reality that human senses couldn't normally access. Alara, in turn, gained appreciation for the structured discipline of Rylan's military mind, the strategic thinking that could channel her more intuitive understanding of the spring flame. Dr. Solon monitored their progress, documenting the physiological changes that accompanied their deepening bond. "Your neural patterns are developing complementary structures," she reported with fascination. "Not merging, but rather creating pathways that allow for instantaneous communication beyond normal sensory channels." Meanwhile, both Junos, the one from Rylan's crew and the alternate timeline version, coordinated the practical aspects of the mission: ships, supplies, intelligence on Empire, and coalition positions in the Alteris system. All were meticulously arranged under their efficient oversight. "We'll need to approach from the system's outer boundary," the other Juno explained during a planning session. "Minimal energy signature until we're in position over the primary fracture site. And we can expect resistance from both factions once we're detected." Rylan's Juno added, "The Empire maintains a monitoring station in the fourth planet's orbit. Coalition forces have a forward base on the seventh moon. Not to mention Morix's corrupted Zirthai," Dr. Kane reminded them. "They'll sense the spring flame's activation from considerable distance." The plan that emerged was daring but calculated. A precision insertion using a modified scout vessel, rather than the more conspicuous Starfire. Approach under minimal power to avoid early detection. Then, a synchronized activation of the spring flame at the fracture's focal point. If successful, the healing effect would spread outward from this nexus, gradually restoring balance to the ravaged world. Throughout these preparations, Rylan noticed subtle changes in his Juno's behavior. A slight withdrawal, moments of distraction, conversations that ended abruptly when he approached. He might have attributed it to the strange circumstance of working alongside her dimensional counterpart, but his enhanced perception through the life bond suggested something more troubling. "She's hiding something," he confided to Alara during a rare moment of privacy. "I've served with Juno for 6 years. I know her tells." Alara's skin rippled with concern. "Do you think she opposes the mission?" "No," Rylan said after consideration. "It's something else. Something personal, perhaps. The other Juno's presence has been challenging for her, I imagine." "Should we confront her?" Alara asked. Rylan shook his head. "Not yet. Let's see if she comes to us first. Juno's always valued loyalty above all else. If there's a conflict, she'll address it before it impacts the mission." But as their departure date approached, Juno made no such overture. Her efficiency remained flawless, her tactical contributions invaluable. Yet the distance between her and Rylan continued to grow. It was a small dissonance in the otherwise harmonious preparations, but one that nagged at him nonetheless. The night before their scheduled departure, Sanctuary held a gathering in the Central Commons. Not quite a celebration, but a moment of community acknowledgement for the mission ahead. Representatives from all the asteroid's diverse populations came together, sharing foods and customs from their respective cultures. Dr. Kane found Rylan observing the gathering from a quiet corner. Having second thoughts? The elderly scientist asked, joining him. Healthy caution, Rylan replied. The mission parameters are sound, but there are always unknowns. Kane nodded, understanding. The life of a soldier, anticipating what might go wrong while proceeding anyway. Something like that, Rylan agreed. Though this is considerably beyond standard military operations. Indeed. Kane's weathered face grew serious. Captain, there's something you should know before you depart. Something about the nature of reality fractures that we haven't fully explained. Rylan's attention sharpened. I'm listening. When a fracture is healed, Kane began carefully, there's a moment of realignment. The fabric of reality adjusts, compensating for the restoration of balance. During this adjustment, those directly connected to the healing process, you and Princess Alara, will experience a temporary expansion of consciousness. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning you'll perceive multiple potential timelines simultaneously, Kane explained. Paths not taken, choices unmade, possibilities that exist alongside our current reality. It can be disorienting, overwhelming, if you're unprepared. Rylan frowned. Why tell me this now, instead of during our training? Because this knowledge itself can influence the process, Kane said. Understanding that multiple realities exist concurrently might cause you to question which is real, potentially destabilizing your focus at a critical moment. But I believe you're now sufficiently grounded in your bond with the princess to handle this awareness. And Alara, does she know? Kane nodded. Telor has explained it to her in terms more familiar to Shirthai understanding. Their species has always had a more intuitive grasp of dimensional fluidity than humans. Across the commons, Rylan spotted Alara in conversation with the three Shirthai mentors, her crystalline crown glowing softly as she absorbed their final guidance. Through their bond, he sensed her determination and readiness, tinged with the appropriate measure of apprehension. Thank you for the warning, Rylan told Kane. Anything else I should know before tomorrow? Kane hesitated, then placed a hand on Rylan's shoulder. Only this. When the moment comes, trust what you feel through the bond more than what you see or hear. Reality may shift around you, but your connection to Princess Alara remains your anchor. With that cryptic advice, Kane departed to mingle with other sanctuary residents, leaving Rylan to contemplate the additional complexity this information added to their already daunting mission. Later that evening, as Rylan was making final preparations in his quarters, an unexpected visitor arrived, his Juno, her expression resolute but troubled. Captain, she began formally, may I speak with you, privately? Of course, Rylan replied, setting aside the equipment he'd been checking. What's on your mind? Juno seemed to struggle with her words, unusual for someone normally so direct. I won't be accompanying you on the mission tomorrow. Rylan raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? I have been reassigned, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. By Empire High Command. The statement hung in the air between them, its implications clear. Somehow, despite Sanctuary's secrecy and security, Empire intelligence had infiltrated their operation. How long? Rylan asked quietly. Since Titan Arc, Juno admitted. I was contacted by an Empire operative before we left. They knew about the princess, about your bond. They instructed me to maintain my cover and report your movements. And have you been reporting? Juno nodded, her expression pained but unapologetic. I took an oath to the Empire, Captain, as did you. Things change, Rylan said simply. Perspectives evolve when you learn the full context of a conflict. So I'm beginning to understand, Juno replied, surprising him. That's why I'm telling you this now. My latest orders are to sabotage your mission to Alterra 7, to prevent any demonstration of the Spring Flame's healing capabilities. Rylan studied her, looking for signs of deception, but finding only the conflicted loyalty of a soldier caught between competing duties. "Why tell me? Why not simply carry out your orders?" "Because I've served with you for 6 years," Juno said, genuine emotion breaking through her composed exterior. "Because despite my oath to the Empire, I can't reconcile their directives with what I've seen here at Sanctuary. The reality fractures, the corrupted Jirthay, the potential for actual peace instead of continued destruction." She straightened her posture. Decision made. "I'm defecting, Captain. Officially as of this moment." Rylan was momentarily speechless, the revelation both shocking and strangely relieving. "The Empire won't take this lightly." "I am aware," Juno said grimly, "which is why I've arranged passage on a different vessel, departing tonight for the outer colonies. My counterpart has facilitated the arrangements." "The other Juno knows about this?" "She suspected from the beginning," Juno admitted. "Apparently in her timeline, I made a different choice, one that led to significant casualties." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. She seemed pleased that I found my conscience earlier in this reality. Rylan processed this information rapidly, assessing its implications for their mission. "The Empire knows our destination. They'll be waiting." "Yes," Juno confirmed. "But they don't know your exact approach vector or timeline. I've omitted certain details in my reports, enough to give you a fighting chance." It was a small advantage, but potentially significant. "Thank you," Rylan said sincerely, "for telling me, for making a difficult choice." Juno nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "The other Juno will take my place on the mission. She's already briefed on all details." She hesitated, then extended her hand. "It's been an honor serving with you, Captain. Whatever happens next, I believe you're on the right side of this conflict." Rylan clasped her hand firmly. "Stay safe, Juno. Perhaps when this is over." "Perhaps," she agreed, though both knew the chances of reunion were slim in a galaxy torn by civil war. With a final nod of respect, she departed, leaving Rylan to adjust their plans in light of this new information. He immediately sought out Alara, finding her in meditation within their shared quarters. Her eyes opened as he entered, silver irises reflecting his concern before he voiced it. "The Empire knows," she said simply, reading his emotional state through their bond. "Yes," Rylan confirmed, quickly explaining Juno's revelation and defection. Alara absorbed this news with characteristic calm, her skin shifting through thoughtful hues. "This changes our approach, but not our purpose," she decided. "The healing must still be attempted, regardless of the additional risk." Rylan nodded agreement. "We'll need to inform Kane and the other Juno, adjust our insertion point, perhaps accelerate our timeline." As they began revising their strategy, a new determination flowed between them through the life bond. The stakes had always been high, but now the personal element intensified. Juno's sacrifice, the Empire's direct opposition, the knowledge that they would be flying into an even more dangerous situation than originally planned. Yet strangely, this increased danger brought clarity rather than doubt. The mission's importance was confirmed by the very forces aligning against it. If both the Empire and General Morix were so determined to prevent the demonstration of the Spring Flame's healing potential, then surely this path was the right one. "Together," Alara said softly, extending her hand in the human gesture she had learned from Rylan. He took it without hesitation, feeling the now familiar warmth of the Spring Flame flowing between them. "Together," he agreed, "whatever comes next." The modified scout vessel glided silently through the outer reaches of the Altera system, its engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. Within the compact bridge, Rylan, Alara, the other Juno, and Dr. Solon maintained focused concentration as they approached their target. Altara 7 hung in the viewport like a wounded creature, once vibrant continents now scarred by orbital bombardment, oceans tainted with chemical weapons, atmosphere choked with the residue of 3 years of intensive warfare. Even from this distance, the planet radiated a palpable sense of suffering. "I can feel the fracture," Alara murmured, her silver eyes fixed on the damaged world. "It's like a scream, frozen in time, resonating through the underlying fabric of reality." Through their bond, Rylan sensed what she described: a discordant note in an otherwise harmonious cosmos, a tear in the natural order that pulsed with accumulated pain and loss. "Long-range sensors are clear for now," the other Juno reported from the tactical station. "But we should assume we're being tracked on frequencies we can't detect." "How long until we reach the optimal position?" Dr. Solon asked, monitoring the specialized equipment they had brought to measure the fracture's dimensions. 17 minutes at current velocity, Juno replied. "The fracture's focal point is located in what was once the planet's primary agricultural region, now ground zero of the first major battle for control of the system." Rylan studied the tactical display, which showed the known positions of Empire and Coalition forces in the system. Neither had significant assets near Altera 7 itself, the planet having been rendered strategically worthless by the intensive fighting. But both maintained monitoring stations that would detect the scout vessel once it entered standard scanning range. "We'll have a narrow window," he observed. "Once we begin the healing process, both factions will detect the energy signature and respond." "And Morix's forces?" Dr. Solon inquired. "Impossible to predict," the other Juno said grimly. "But we must assume they're already en route. The corrupted Zirthe can sense the spring flame across vast distances, especially when it's actively channeled." As they drew closer to their target, Alara began the preparatory meditations Telor had taught her, her crystalline crown pulsing with increasing brilliance. Rylan joined her in the specialized synchronization techniques they had practiced, allowing their consciousnesses to align more perfectly through the life bond. The process was becoming more natural with each attempt, the initial resistance fading as their minds recognized the complementary patterns that allowed the spring flame to flow between them without disruption. "Energy synchronization at 73%, Dr. Solon reported, monitoring the instrumentation that measured their bond's coherence. "Remarkable efficiency, considering the circumstances." "We can do better," Alara said with quiet determination. "The fracture will require near-perfect harmony to heal completely." Rylan focused more intently, allowing his structured military discipline to complement Alara's more intuitive connection to the spring flame. Through their bond, he could sense her guidance, subtle adjustments to his mental state that enhanced their synchronization. 84%, Dr. Solon announced after several minutes. 91, 95% coherence achieved. "Approaching optimal position," the other Juno reported. 5 minutes to fracture focal point." The scout vessel continued its silent approach, now close enough to Altera 7 that the full extent of the devastation became visible. Through the viewports, they could see the massive impact craters from orbital bombardment, the ghostly outlines of cities reduced to rubble, forests burned to ash by incendiary weapons. "So much suffering," Alara whispered, her skin paling to an almost translucent white. "The land itself remembers." "Contact," Juno suddenly called out. "Multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace at the system boundary. Empire signatures." Rylan checked the tactical display. "How long until they intercept?" 22 minutes at their current acceleration, Juno calculated. "But they're launching fighters. Advance elements could reach us in 12 minutes. And we need at least 15 for the healing process," Dr. Solon added, concern evident in her voice. "Then we proceed as planned," Rylan decided. "Maintain course to the focal point. We'll deal with interception if and when it occurs." As they closed the final distance to their target position, Dr. Solon activated the specialized equipment they had brought from Sanctuary, devices designed to amplify and direct the spring flame's healing energy precisely at the reality fracture's core. "All systems online," she reported, Ready to channel when you are. Rylan and Alara moved to the center of the bridge, where a circular platform had been installed specifically for this purpose. As they took their positions facing each other, their hands clasped in the ritual pose Telor had taught them. The life bond between them surged with unprecedented intensity. Entering optimal position now, Juno announced. Holding station above the fracture focal point. Beginning synchronization, Alara said, her voice taking on that resonant quality that indicated the spring flame's activation. The crystalline structures around her head flared with brilliant blue-white light, energy coursing from her body into Rylan's through their clasped hands. Unlike previous training sessions, this was no gentle flow, but a torrent of power that threatened to overwhelm his human consciousness. Rylan struggled momentarily, fighting the instinct to pull away from such alien energy. Then, remembering Kane's advice, he stopped resisting and instead embraced the flow, allowing the spring flame to move through him as a conduit rather than trying to contain it. The effect was immediate and profound. The boundary between his consciousness and Alara's became permeable, their thoughts and perceptions merging into a unified awareness that encompassed both human and Zirthe perspectives. Through this expanded consciousness, he could see the reality fracture directly, not as a metaphorical tear, but as an actual wound in the fabric of existence, pulsing with discordant energy. Synchronization complete. Dr. Solin's voice seemed to come from very far away. Energy coherence at 98% and rising. The amplifiers are responding. The equipment around the platform hummed to life, capturing the excess energy radiating from their bond and focusing it downward toward the planet's surface, where this concentrated beam of the spring flame touched the fracture. Ripples of harmonious energy began to spread outward, like healing tissue knitting together a wound. Through their merged consciousness, Rylan and Alara guided this process, directing the flow of healing energy to the fracture's most damaged regions. It was delicate work, requiring perfect balance between his structured approach and her intuitive understanding. Empire fighters entering weapons range in 6 minutes, the other Juno warned, her voice barely penetrating their shared trance. Coalition forces also mobilizing from the 7th moon. New contact, she added urgently. Unknown vessel approaching from the system's edge. Energy signature matches. It's Morix's command ship. This information registered dimly in their unified awareness. But Rylan and Alara remained focused on the healing process. The fracture was responding to their efforts, the discordant energies gradually resolving into harmonious patterns as the spring flame restored balance to the damaged reality. Then, just as Kane had warned, perception shifted. Rylan felt his consciousness expand beyond the present moment, beyond singular reality. Suddenly, he was experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously, versions of himself that had made different choices, followed different paths. In one, he had never intercepted the Mediana blade, and Alara had perished on Tethys 9. In another, they had been captured by the Empire and separated, the life bond severed through experimental procedures. In yet another, they had fled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, living in isolation but safety. Alongside these alternate selves, he perceived Alara's corresponding variants, dead, imprisoned, hiding. The kaleidoscope of possibilities was dizzying, threatening to fragment his sense of identity. Remember, Kane's voice echoed in his memory. Trust what you feel through the bond, more than what you see or hear. Clinging to this advice, Rylan focused on the one constant across all these diverging timelines, the connection he shared with Alara, wherever and whenever they existed. That bond remained a fixed point, an anchor in the storm of shifting realities. Alara's consciousness joined his in this recognition, their unified awareness narrowing from the overwhelming multiverse of possibilities to the single timeline they currently inhabited, the one where they stood together on the scout vessel. channeling the spring flame to heal Alterra 7's reality fracture. "It's working," Dr. Solon announced, her voice clearer now as their perception stabilized. "The fracture is responding, disruption patterns decreasing by 27%, 43%. Through the viewports, they could see the visible manifestation of their work, a soft, blue-white glow spreading across Alterra 7's surface from the focal point, like ripples in a pond. Where this energy touched, the land itself seemed to respond, colors brightening subtly, as if awakening from a long nightmare. "Empire fighters entering firing range," the other Juno reported tensely. 3 minutes until Morix's vessel is in position to deploy corrupted Zirthai. "We need more time," Dr. Solon urged. "The healing process is only at 68% completion." Through their bond, Rylan and Alara shared a wordless decision. With unified intent, they channeled additional power through their connection, pushing the spring flame to greater intensity. The crystalline structures around Alara's head blazed like a crown of stars, while Rylan's body began to emit a sympathetic glow, his human cells resonating with alien energy. The effort was tremendous, taxing both their physical and mental reserves. But the effect was immediate. The healing ripples accelerated across Alterra 7's surface, the fracture closing more rapidly as reality reknit itself under the spring flame's influence. "Fracture healing at accelerated rate," Dr. Solon confirmed. 82%, 90%. "Empire fighters launching missiles," the other Juno warned. "Impact in 40 seconds. "Evasive maneuvers would disrupt the healing process," Dr. Solon protested. "Maintain position," Rylan managed to say, his voice strained but determined. "Almost. There." Through their merged consciousness, he and Alara could see the fracture now reduced to a thin line of discordance, the surrounding reality strengthening as balance returned. With one final, concentrated effort, they directed the full power of the spring flame at this remaining wound. The fracture sealed with a pulse of energy that momentarily overwhelmed the scout vessel's sensors. A wave of harmonious force expanded outward from Alterra 7, washing over the approaching Empire fighters and continuing to ripple through the system. "Fracture sealed," Dr. Solon reported in amazement. 100% healing achieved. The reality imbalance it's completely resolved. Rylan and Alara slowly disentangled their consciousnesses, returning to individual awareness while maintaining the deep connection of their bond. As they separated their clasped hands, residual energy danced between their fingertips like miniature lightning. "The Empire fighters," Rylan asked, his voice hoarse from the strain. "Status?" The other Juno checked her instruments, her expression perplexed. "They're holding position. Missiles deactivated. It's as if..." She looked up in wonder. The healing wave affected them too. Not just the planet, but everything the energy touched. Dr. Solon was rapidly analyzing data from multiple instruments. "The spring flame didn't merely heal the physical damage," she explained excitedly. "It restored balance to the consciousness of those within its influence. The hatred, the aggression driving the conflict, it's been temporarily neutralized." Through the viewports, they could see the transformation of Alterra 7 continuing. Barren soil, showing the first hints of green. Poisoned oceans clearing. The very atmosphere appearing lighter as contaminants were neutralized. "We did it," Alara said softly, her silver eyes wide with wonder. "We actually healed a world." "Not just the world," the other Juno added, still monitoring communications channels. "I'm picking up transmissions from both Empire and Coalition forces. They're confused, disoriented. The commanders are ordering stand-down procedures until they can assess what happened." "And Morix?" Rylan asked. Juno's expression darkened. "His vessel is still approaching, though at reduced speed. The corrupted Zirthai may be more resistant to the healing effect due to their altered connection to the spring flame." Then we need to broadcast while we have the chance, Ryland decided. Dr. Solon, prepare the documentation of what we've accomplished here. Juno, open channels to both Empire and Coalition command frequencies. As they hastily assembled the evidence of their successful healing, sensor readings, visual recordings, analytical data, Ryland turned to Alara, who was gazing at the transformed planet with a mixture of awe and satisfaction. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. "Complete," she replied simply. "For the first time in my life, I understand what the spring flame was truly meant for. Not power, not weapon, but restoration." Her silver eyes met his. "And you? Are you all right after experiencing the multiple timelines?" Ryland nodded slowly. "It was educational. Seeing all those other possibilities, other choices." A slight smile touched his lips. "Makes me appreciate the path we're actually on, despite its dangers." "Channels open," the other Juno announced, broadcasting on all Empire and Coalition command frequencies. Ryland straightened his posture, facing the communication array. "This is Captain Terran Ryland Cade, formerly of Oraxis Empire Frontier Operations, speaking jointly with Princess Alara Vesh of the Zirthay Royal Line. What you have just witnessed is the true purpose of the Spring Flame. Not destruction, but healing. Not weapon, but restoration." Alara joined him, her resonant voice carrying conviction. "The reality fractures caused by this war threaten all existence, regardless of faction or species. What we have demonstrated here is merely the beginning of what's possible when we work in harmony rather than conflict. We offer this demonstration as proof," Ryland continued, "that cooperation between human and Zirthay, between all species, offers a better path forward than the weaponization sought by both Empire and Coalition leadership. The choice now lies with you," Alara concluded. "Continue a war that tears at the fabric of reality itself, or embrace a new possibility, healing rather than harm, creation rather than destruction. We stand ready to assist those who choose the latter path." As their message transmitted across the system and beyond, Dr. Solon approached with new sensor readings. "The healing effect continues to spread," she reported excitedly. "Not just on Altera 7, but throughout the system. Smaller fractures we hadn't even detected are being sealed by the residual energy." "And the planet itself?" Ryland asked. "Experiencing accelerated regeneration," Dr. Solon confirmed. "Soil toxicity decreasing, radiation levels normalizing, even some dormant seed banks beginning to activate. It's as if the land remembers its original state and is striving to return to it." The other Juno interrupted with a warning. "Morix's vessel has resumed full approach speed. They'll be in range in 4 minutes. We should depart while the Empire and Coalition forces remain disoriented." Ryland nodded agreement. "Set course for the predetermined extraction point. Maximum speed, once we're clear of the healing field." As the scout vessel powered up its main engines and began to move away from Altera 7, Ryland and Alara stood together at the viewport, watching the world they had helped heal recede from view. The blue-white glow continued to spread across its surface, visible evidence of the spring flame's restorative power. "This is just the beginning," Alara said quietly. "One world among thousands affected by the war. But an undeniable example," Ryland replied. "A proof that cannot be dismissed as mere theory or propaganda." Through their bond, they shared a moment of perfect understanding, satisfaction at what they had accomplished, determination to continue the work, and the deep connection that had made it all possible. The life debt that had begun with a blade, meant for death, had indeed transformed into something life-affirming, not just for them, but potentially for an entire galaxy caught in destructive conflict. As the scout vessel accelerated away from Altera 7, preparing to jump to the rendezvous coordinates, where sanctuary operatives awaited, Ryland felt something he hadn't experienced in years of frontier combat: genuine hope for the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Morix's continued pursuit, the Empire's sense of betrayal, the uncertain response of both factions to their demonstration, they would face them together, bound by forces more powerful than faction loyalty or military hierarchy. The Spring Flame had found its true purpose again, channeled through the unique bond between human and Zirthe. And perhaps, just perhaps, that bond offered a template for the larger healing that a war-torn galaxy so desperately needed. Different species, different perspectives, united in common purpose rather than divided by ancient hatreds and fresh grievances. As the stars stretched into streaks of light around them, the scout vessel entered the jump corridor that would carry them to temporary safety. But Rylan and Alara knew their journey was far from over. They had made their statement, drawn their line in the cosmic sand. Now came the difficult part, building on that statement, expanding their demonstration into a movement that could truly change the course of the Civil War. The life debt between them had evolved from mystical connection to shared mission, from accident of fate to deliberate choice. Whatever the future held, they would face it as partners in the truest sense, human and Zirthe, soldier and princess, bound together by forces that transcended the ordinary boundaries of existence. And in that bond lay the seed of hope for a galaxy in desperate need of healing.